From VPM News in Richmond, I'm Craig Carper. Joining me now from the Richmond Times-Dispatch is political columnist and VPM's political analyst, Jeff Schapiro. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, Craig. Welcome back.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to be back. It's all coronavirus all the time, it seems, this week. The first in the nation COVID workplace safety regulations have been adopted by Virginia. A congressman and his wife tested positive for the disease, and schools across the state are opting for the virtual classroom rather than the real thing.
The Virginia Safety and Health Board adopted these rules on Wednesday, saying the state had to do something because the Trump administration is doing nothing. The rules include masks, hand sanitizing stations, social distancing in offices, on factory floors, regular cleaning of high-use surfaces, doors, desks, and alerting workers when their co-workers test positive for the disease. Now, business is complaining about these requirements. It's overreach, that these rules are costly and will only make it more difficult for business to extract itself from the economic ditch in which it finds itself because of the pandemic. Organized labor is pleased with this, though labor expressed some concern before the vote this week that management had figured out a way to worm around some of these rules. Now, another aspect of the kind of job safety, job benefits aspect of the COVID outbreak, those enhanced jobless benefits for Virginians who have either lost their work or have found that their salaries have been reduced. So now we are seeing a political dimension here, and it's Democrat v. Democrat. Donald McEachin, congressman from the Richmond area, has sent a letter to the Northam administration saying the Virginia Employment Commission is doing a pretty bad job of getting these benefits out, and that something needs to be done to accelerate the pace for handling all of these claims. You know, you and I have heard any number of times at the General Assembly that the front end system at the VEC is outdated, that it's slow and balky. This experience may give the legislature and presumably Governor Northam an excuse to maybe make an investment to improve that front end system. The congressman is Morgan Griffith, the representative from far southwest Virginia, Republican. His territory includes some of the most strongly pro-Trump turf in the country. He announced this week that he has the coronavirus, as does his wife Hillary, who's a judge out in the Roanoke area. The congressman is a member of the Freedom Caucus. This is that group of very conservative Republicans. They've been publicly skeptical about some of the recommendations taken to battle the disease, including mandatory masks. But now Griffith is sort of kind of saying that people should be using face covering. As for schools, classes are supposed to resume around the state in about 6 weeks. School districts are trying to figure out what to do. With the infection rates spiking in various areas of the state and those record outbreaks around the country, virtual classes look like they're going to be the rule in a number of localities. That includes Richmond, Prince William County in Northern Virginia, also in Arlington, just outside of Washington, D.C. The idea is to protect students and teachers. Out in Roanoke County, there's a hybrid being put in place. Some kids will be in school daily, others 2 or 3 days a week. There's also a remote option for students. This is going to be very hard on working parents. And here's betting that educators and researchers will be following closely what distance learning means for kids who are accustomed to being with others, running around on playgrounds, developing the intellectual and social skills that they'll use as adults in the workplace and in their communities.
And spikes in coronavirus are being reported across the state, but the most significant increases are along the beach points where the pandemic is punishing the summer tourist economy.
And the region in Virginia where infections are climbing to record levels is Hampton Roads. It includes those coastal resorts, most notably Virginia Beach. Governor Northam, and this is his home territory, announced tougher safety rules for the area and says businesses that don't enforce these masking rules, social distancing requirements, could lose their licenses. Republicans are steamed about this, branding the governor anti-business. But also in Virginia Beach, growing numbers of parents, at least, are very worried. School system is yet to indicate what it will be doing, whether classes will be in person, virtual, or a combination of the two. There are parents groups that are demanding the virtual approach because its members are not convinced that school, in the traditional sense, will be safe for their children.
And the coronavirus is shaping the contest for the Republican nomination for Congress in the sprawling 7th District, where the GOP hopes to take back the suburban Richmond-anchored seat that Democrat Abigail Spanberger won 2 years ago.
And on Saturday, 7th District Republicans will hold their convention up at the state fairgrounds in Caroline County. This is going to be an in-person deal, not one of those drive-through conventions like we saw out in the 5th District, one that was so thinly attended, a very conservative ilk was able to knock off an incumbent Republican, Congressman Denver Riggleman. There will be safety precautions recommended at the 7th District meeting. Masks will be available. Delegates will enter the hall, vote, and then depart. They're supposed to return to their cars. It is not a perfect system at all, and it's one in which the flaws that some fear it will have would quickly be on full display. You've got a half a dozen candidates, including 2 members of the House of Delegates, Nick Freitas and John McGuire. One or the other will likely be the nominee. They're the best known. They've also raised a lot of money. But we're going to be seeing multiple ballots, a maximum of 3, and with those ballots held through the day on what is likely to be a punishingly hot day, there's no telling how many people will stick around after that first ballot, and that's when things could get nutty. Now, the 7th District, of course, includes parts of Henrico and Chesterfield that have become increasingly Democratic. That's how Abigail Spanberger won that seat against Dave Bratt 2 years ago. It was an off-year election with a lighter turnout in a presidential year in a district like the 7th that went strongly for Trump in 2016. Republicans think they can take back this seat, but there's a rub. Because of the pandemic, the Republican nominating contest in the 7th, which should have wrapped up in April, has dragged on into the middle of summer, and that's given the candidates more time to cut each other up, more time to spend a lot more money that should have been husbanded for November. In other words, and one hears this from Republicans, their nominee could be weak as a result of all of this internal fighting, the grassroots exhausted by it, and activists angry, especially those who back the losers.
All right, thanks to Jeff Schapiro, political columnist at the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Jeff, we will catch up again next week.
Good weekend to you.
You as well.